comment. I've seen your comments also, and so
right, I have too. Well, hello folks. We're a little late because we were talking about rock music and the Canadian Football League. And I was playing a song called Moses Lay It On Down from which was sort of apropos. And then William could tell what era it was from because they had that whack, 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 whack,
wah-wah.
That guitar sound, you know. I don't know how to describe that.
That's a wah-wah pedal.
I thought that was pretty accurate.
Yeah, wah-wah pedal. So that was a very popular item at that time. And I'm going to try to set up the chat. Let's see what I can do with that. Just be patient. We'll have the good, the bad, and the ugly as far as comments. Tonight, we're doing something related to Canada. And it's interesting because the first day of the month was the 150th anniversary of Canada. Also, this is the 50th anniversary of this whiskey, Canadian Mist. So it all comes together. Now, tonight, from the South, we have me, Louisiana Beer Reviews. Oh, well, tonight, whiskey reviews, whiskey examinations, me. And then we have Bill from Florida, formerly from the North. But we're not going to hold that against you. And Bill McIntosh, and then we have John. John, what state are you in?
Here in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, and that's where you're from? You grew up there?
I actually grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and then when I graduated, I moved out here. I got a job out in Columbus and been here ever since. So. Like Ron got cut off again.
Bill, yep. I think we lost Bill's audio.
Sorry, brothers, my thing keeps failing. Columbus, Georgia, and that's where you live now, in Georgia.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
All right. Hopefully my thing won't keep failing. I was having problems with Google Chrome. It kept trying to mess up my audio, and then Firefox, it was saying it was no longer compatible with the Hangouts, and then Internet Explorer, they're saying or Microsoft Edge said, look like you stumbled across some what did they say, some ancient web tech. I said, I didn't know Hangouts was ancient web tech, but they're saying play it on Internet Explorer. I don't know, I can't explain it. Everything else I do, like if I do my own Hangouts in the morning, they work fine. Y'all hear me all right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, now down up the road, we have Michael way up the road in Canada, very close to the distillery, and we have William not so far away in North Carolina. This company, I could not find out who started Canadian Mist in 1967, but it was only 4 years later they were bought out by Brown-Forman, who is still the parent company today, 46 years later. Apparently, it's one of the top-selling Canadian whiskeys. And a blended Canadian whiskey is not the same as American whiskey, a blend. You know that, huh, William?
Right. You have to read very closely.
It's different whiskeys blended together, whereas American whiskey, a blend, is typically these days 80% grain neutral spirits with 20% straight whiskey of some sort or another. Now, I'm gonna, yeah.
Are you able to, if I send you a link on Facebook, are you able to see it while we're chatting?
About what?
It's about Canadian Mist in the background of it.
Well, I might, but I was having problems with this thing trying to kick me out, so I might want to not bring up too many things at this point. You know what I mean? Just for
yeah, no, I understand. I'll
control
I'll send
purpose.
it to you. You can look at it at your leisure.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the Canadian Mist website, and it's saying not a whole lot, but it's saying it's a rich honey color. The aroma is fair oak and vanilla notes with a very mild fruit medley essence. A hint of brown sugar opens up. They say the taste is a soft, light sweetness which dissolves. They left out that word. They should have put it. Oh, I see. I was reading it. What is this? Oh, let me get off of that. It's saying a soft, light sweetness dissolves into a mild oak profile, clean and cool with a quick fade. Now, I saw a video that a guy that he does whiskey reviews of pretty much only whiskey reviews. He's from Germany. And he went on a tour of the Canadian Mist facility. He said, unfortunately, for some reason, as a Canadian law, you can't make a video of a fermentation room. He said, I don't understand. But you could look at all the other parts, and it was a very interesting video, and they had some things I'll bring up later. But anybody here has never had Canadian Mist? So we got three who.
I bought my first bottle on Tuesday. I've been drinking it ever since, but this is really my first time with it. I've never had it before this past week. So
yeah, and I had never had it until recently either. It's 80 proof, so that's your standard alcohol level. Okay, I'll just mention these things real fast before I forget. They say that and I know this is right because I looked at the brand representative on the video. He said, well, it's made to be very light. He talked about how it was like making tea using the same tea bag twice by design. And that made me think of Gentleman Jack, which is that Jack Daniels, and it's filtered, I'm sorry, charcoal mellowed twice to mute it. Now, it's interesting, though. They take one whiskey here, Canadian Mist, and they sell it as a discount brand, and it's watered down, so to speak. But they're taking Jack Daniels Gentleman Jack, and they're pretty much giving it the same treatment, but they're selling it as an upmarket product. So I guess it depends how you frame it, right?
So this is from a company that has Jack Daniels. Speak of framing a product. That's
second point. They age Canadian Mist in used Jack Daniels barrels. Well, that makes sense because they own all the assets. Third point. The barrels are stacked very oddly in the barrel room. If you watch the video, they're not stacked sideways. They're stacked vertically. And the bung is at the top of the barrel, not on the side, which I found was strange. But they said, no, that's the way they are. They do it there. Fourth point, it's not bottled in Canada. They ship it to Louisville, Kentucky, at a Brown-Forman facility and bottle it there. Just like that Canadian Club, right? Shipped across, bottled, and then sold back to Canada. So those are four interesting points to me. Now, Michael Jennings, you don't live too far away from the facility, correct? The distillery.
Yeah, I'm about 25 minutes away from it, and then would drive essentially right by it at least once or twice a week. I'll just quickly share with you a bit of the background. This is from one of our local newspapers, and it notes that the facility was built in Collingwood following a 10-year-long search for the perfect building location. Then Barton Brands president Lester S. Abelson bypassed building sites in Manitoba, Fort William, and Windsor before settling and building on McDonald Road in Collingwood in 1967. Barton Brands built and operated the plant for 5 years before it was sold to the Kentucky-based company Brown-Forman in 1971, which remains Canadian Mist's parent company to this day. So that's just a bit of the background about the early days of the distillery.
Ah, so Barton Brands. Wow.
Yeah. And that's a really reliable newspaper source. I wouldn't doubt what it's telling us.
Okay, I'm gonna read some of the comments, then we'll start looking at it. Eric, a Lions fan, says, "Hey Ron, hey Eric, you could join us if you want." Let's see, I'm gonna read some other good comments. Captain Bailey says, "Hey Ron, I'm watching and listening from work." Hey Captain Bailey. Gary says, "I wasn't able to find this at any liquor stores here, so I'll just watch." That's weird, Gary. I thought this was kind of like everywhere. Tim says, "It's a dang good drink." Yeah, I with my little bit of sampling, I thought it was good. Gary says, "Sounds like something right up my alley." And then Kent Beer Review says, "Just noticed you're on." We are on. And Kent, Craig, do you get Canadian?
Please stand by. We're having technical difficulty. Jay will be right back. Bill, we can't hear you. No, I can see you, but I can't hear you. Can you hear him, William or John?
No, I can't.
I do not. I don't even see him. I see his logo.
Oh, I can see him perfectly fine, but there's no audio.
Yeah, he's got a blue T-shirt on. But Yingling.
So Michael,
And a good blue.
you're in Ontario?
I am, yeah. Do you know Ontario at all?
No, not very well.
I am about 2 hours north of Toronto, which is the province's capital city. It's also the country's largest city. I think it's about 3.5 million people.
How far do you live from the Georgian Bay?
I'm right on Georgian Bay.
That's where they say that they have some of the purest water in North America.
Yeah, I live in a.
Well, that's
For this,
I live in a place called Wasaga Beach, which is known as the longest freshwater beach in the world, and it's part of Georgian Bay.
Yeah.
The bay that we're on is actually called Nottawasaga Bay, which is part of Georgian Bay.
I wonder if the distillery runs across the bay, because the information I have says that they use the water from the Georgian Bay to make Canadian Mist.
Yeah, that would be correct because of the town they're in. I know they draw it from Georgian Bay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I had to get off of Google. I had to get off of stinking Internet Explorer. Yeah, they're talking about this has bad web tech. What about your web tech? It's like, come on, man. Y'all hear me all right now, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
But it might start going. I don't know. Anyway, I guess there's no use. All right. Well, so it's got a. Now I couldn't pin down the sales numbers, but it's a pretty big seller, right? I mean, Canadian Mist is not some low volume item, right?
The Proof 66 website said it's among the 10 highest rated Canadian whiskeys in the marketplace. And despite its status as a bottom shelf product, it won a double gold medal at the 2009 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. So somebody likes it.
And and double gold means that it was like top dog in the whole category.
I think people buying it probably tend to buy it to use with mix and stuff more than anything else. But you could certainly sip on it neat or with ice, and it's enjoyable.
The guy was talking about that on the Canadian Mist. They were like in an office, and they were tasting different Canadian Mist. They tasted the Canadian Mist, and then they tasted those two other like specialty blended Canadian whiskeys from up there, from the same company that are much more expensive. But they did the Canadian Mist first, and they said, well, it's more of a mixer, really.
Mm-hmm.
They do make an upscale product called Collingwood.
That's right.
That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one I'm talking about, Collingwood.
And that's the town where it's actually distilled. Just to give you a bit of background about the town, it's about 20,000 people. It's on the shore of Georgian Bay. It was a shipbuilding town for about 100 years. They built Great Lakes freighters and ships that sailed the ocean. And it's also a downhill ski community in the wintertime.
Skiing, huh? Well, y'all ready to tie one on?
Absolutely.
Let's ready to tie one on. All right. Looks like John, what are you drinking right now? Some of the Canadian Mist?
Yeah, I've been sipping on it for a while out of my Miller Fortune rocks glass here.
Nice.
I wanted to get one of those glasses. Now, I have a small bottle. I only have like 100 milliliter bottle. This won't last very long. But you got the plastic 375, huh, Bill?
Yeah, man. 200 milliliter.
Oh, 200, okay. William got that little 50 milliliter.
What I got was I was at the Salvation Army. That's where I get a lot of my beer glassware. And I happened to see this is like a mini decanter. So I put my 50 milliliter bottle in this to give it a little bit of a class. Although Fred Sanford once said he would never drink anything that didn't come out of a label if there wasn't a label on the bottle. But I know where this comes from, so I may just sip it right out of the decanter. Don't want to get too high class with this product.
I think that was a good practice from Fred Sanford, but you know where it came from. And Michael, what do you have?
I have the 750 ml bottle. I can't get anything smaller. I was trying to think whether I've seen it in smaller bottles, because I remembered when we last talked, you had the smaller bottle, and I don't recall. I normally have seen it in 750 ml, and that's what they had when I recently went and looked for it.
It's only about $8 here for that size bottle.
For the 750 ml?
Yeah, $8 to $10.
Yeah, mine was $9.99 for the 750 ml bottle, and this is actually the only bottle size available. I can't get the smaller bottles here.
Here it is $26.45. Canadian.
Canadian, right? We can get those big jug bottles too. You know, those handle bottles. That's a 1.75 milliliter. All right. Well, since you're from Canada, and this was an important week in Canadian history. Well, I'm sorry, last week was Saturday. So you can start off the aroma and the flavor. We know it's a light color. It's more gold than amber, of course. It's pale. It is pale, right?
Yeah, it's kind of got a pale color to it. I find that there's kind of a grainy whiskey smell to it. Not overpowering, but it's there. Yeah,
and they were saying on the video, the guy was asking the fellow from the Canadian Mist Company, Brown Foreman, of course. He said, "Well, this has probably got a lot of barley in it, right? A whole lot of barley." He said, "Well, actually, the predominant ingredient is corn."
Yep.
He said, "But they use barley and rye also, but it's actually corn more than the other ones."
Yeah, and I think that's also what, one of the things that you'll notice when you taste it, or I guess you've already tasted it, is that sweetness to it that comes from the corn.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Michael. You've got the floor.
So yeah, it's got that grainy smell to it. It's got that smell of alcohol, but it's not overpowering. I find when you taste it, there's a slight sweetness to it. There's almost hints of vanilla to it. And I don't know how else you would describe it. I know on our Liquor Control Board website here, they note honey is one of the other fragrances to it, but I like myself. The finish is fairly easy going, I think. The rest of you.
How about you, Bill? We'll go way south. How about you, Bill McIntosh?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. You get that little garble as time goes on, but don't worry about it. It's not horrendous.
Well, the comparison that I'm sort of stacking this up against is the Canadian Club that we had not too long ago. There's kind of some similarities in that they're both like real fragrant. I can pick up even from the smell, sort of the vanilla overtone to it. This happens to finish, to my way of thinking, a little bit more spicy than the Canadian Club. A little more oaky, kind of a spice note. But I don't know, kind of average for me.
All right, I'll talk, and then I'm gonna let John and then William. And this is not a personal preference thing. I'm just doing it randomly without any kind of planning, for sure. Oh, we got Dr. Dave.
Dr. Dave is in the house.
All right, all you haters, controls, control yourselves.
What's
All
up, Dr. Dave?
Hey, it's all good.
We're just drinking some Canadianness. I'm going to give you a quick assessment. I'm noticing a lot of vanilla, like no joke, a lot of vanilla. It's really notable. Now,
Yeah, that's the smell that I most noticed.
there's a little wood. There's a little like they're saying honey or something like standard whiskey aroma, but the taste. A little sugar, like you said, from the corn, maybe that sweetness, caramel. Not so much vanilla in the taste. A little wood, like toothpick, like sort of thing, and the body's light. The finish is pretty clean. You're saying average. I guess it's average. Because there's probably so many whiskeys that are similar in the flavor, but I don't think it's bad or unpleasant or off or like wanky or weird or exotic. But I could be too easily pleased. Now, what about you, John?
Well, in the smell, I don't get a lot there. Bill mentioned the Canadian Club earlier. There's a lot more to the aroma with the Canadian Club, I find. A lot of corn. And the taste is very mellow. There's not really a lot of depth of flavor. I'm not picking up any oak. Definitely don't get the vanilla. But it is very mellow. It's very easy drinking, and obviously it would be very good as a mixer. But really not a lot there. I've actually had some company at Stillhouse, and they make, it's pretty much moonshine, just unaged whiskey. And this reminds me a lot of that. So this is obviously a very young whiskey, or blended whiskey, and it says on the back, at least 36 months. So I would imagine that it's probably not aged much longer than that. But it is very enjoyable. It's very mellow. I prefer the Canadian Club. I think there's a little bit more there, and it's at a similar price point. But overall, it's not bad. It's just, as you say, Ron, ultra gourmet. It's not ultra gourmet by any means, but it is enjoyable.
The Canadian Club around here runs about $2 more per bottle. Now, William, what do you think about it? And oh, one more thing, John, did you pick up any vanilla in the nose, though?
Maybe just a little bit, but not very much at all.
Okay. What about you, William?
Using the Canadian Club as a yardstick, this is a noticeably milder aroma, very mellowed out in a sense. What I can discern from the aroma is mostly of a vanilla nature, but not a lot going on there, really.
You notice the honey they talk about? Because that's one thing I don't pick up at all.
To me, it's more like a sort of a mild, sweet, more caramel type.
Yeah.
But this is overall, this is very mild. You know, some people would interpret that as bland, depending on your semantics. But it just seems like it's sort of toned down from what you get from a Canadian Club, as they took the dial and just tuned it back somewhat in the aroma. And I'll take a sip of it.
Okay.
I don't find it has the pepperiness that you get in Canadian Club.
Yeah, probably got a little higher ride injection on. Hey, Drunken One is watching. He says he's about to switch to the wine. He's got no liquor. And then some people are getting into it because some people are trying to make trouble, but I'm not going to reference it there because I said I was going to talk about the worthwhile comments. Okay.
Definitely an undertone of vanilla in this. And as I mentioned, a little caramel, maybe even like a little bit of dark fruit, but it's all very subtle. Nothing in the flavor profile just jumps out at you. It just, I think, and I think this pretty much by deliberately is designed for the intended consumer. It doesn't want flavorful. I mean, if you look on the Canadian website, they're drinking red solo sort of young people. I think they're intended audiences for the casual whiskey drinker. I think what that, the market is probably it's the spot for them.
So it's never designed for deep speculative whiskey examinations.
No, actually, the website reminded me a lot of. There's a guy on there playing a acoustic guitar, and he's using the bottle as a slide. And I said, "Where have I seen this before?" I said, "Oh, Bud Black Crown." Maybe they're using the same marketing.
Could be the same marketing.
Yeah.
Hey, up there in Ohio, you ever had this whiskey? I know back 30 years ago you used to dabble in whiskey. I know you don't mess around with it these days, but you ever fooled around Canadian Mist?
Signed Canadian Mist. I've had
Canadian Club, yeah.
Man, I echo.
I'm not hearing the echo. Y'all hearing the echo?
I'm hearing it right now. Yeah, I'm hearing it right now.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding everybody.
You might want to turn your mic down.
I'm getting a bunch of garbled.
Oh. Sounds good to me on my end. But Challenger sounded good until they throttled up. I can hear y'all fine. So. But like I said, Challenger was sounding good until they throttled up. I'm going to compare this to some blended whiskey from America. Would y'all try it? Would y'all ever buy this again now?
No.
Would I buy it again?
Yeah.
I would probably gravitate more towards Canadian Club or Crown Royal.
Yeah.
They're not much more. I think a couple of dollars more, and I think they're a better tasting product. I don't think this is bad product at all. I think it's well made, and if you want to sip away on it, I think that's great. And if you want to use it for mix, that's great. But personally, if I was going out to buy a bottle for my liquor cabinet, I would go, you know, if I was buying a Canadian whiskey, I would go towards Canadian Club or Crown Royal, or I don't know if you've had it there, Gibson's Finest. It's another Canadian whiskey.
I may have seen that.
It's 40%. I think it's aged 12 years, so it's aged a bit longer.
12 years. I'm trying this blended whiskey from Kentucky right now, Heaven Hill, as a comparison. I have to say, though, the Canadian Mist had a lot more aroma than this Heaven Hill.
Yeah.
The Heaven Hill is just like bland. It's like papery almost. It's nothing bad. It just doesn't have any. It's so faint. The mist, even though the mist is light, it has a little more character. But let me see about the taste. Yeah, this stuff is like nothing, and that's a bad indication if you take in Canadian Mist, which is pretty dang dull, and you're putting up this Kentucky. Heaven Hill Kentucky whiskey, and it is lifeless compared to the Canadian Mist. So that's a little interesting comparison. We went from dumbed down to Zippo, nothing. All right, any last comments? And like I said, I'm hearing everything fine. I hear everybody just perfect. No echo, nothing.
The audio seems to have gotten better.
Yeah, it's a little bit better on my end now.
Like, you sound perfect now, John.
Yeah, if you watch Hangouts on Google, they'll have these little flux situations where it just goes, and then it'll go away, and then it'll come back.
This is
well, let me say,
I was mentioning.
Oh,
Gibson's, I've never seen that.
okay. What do you want to say, John?
I was going to say, you know, for the price point, I'll stick with Canadian Club, or another one that I really enjoy is the Black Velvet. I think a lot, you know, better. It's got more depth of flavor. Not that the Canadian Mist is bad by any means, but you know, the Black Velvet and the Canadian Club are comparably priced, so I'd rather have those over the Canadian Mist.
Hey, William, you and I drank that Jethro T Boots. Don't you find that it has more flavor than the Canadian Mist?
Yeah, I would find a hard time making a compelling reason to buy this again, really. There's just so much competition out there. I would leap all of these things and go grab a bottle of Evan Williams. It's cheap. I mean, when it's the price point it is, I would take it immediately. This, I just can't find any reason to pull the money out of the wallet and buy this, really. It's you know, there's so many products on the marketplace competing against it.
I'm with you. 10 times out of 10, I'm on mine.
Well, I think that comment pretty much sums up what Bill thinks about it. Hey, you know what? I bought a little bottle. It only cost about $3 or $4, which was probably too much for me. I would have done better buying the $7.50. But I tried it. I have a little bit left for a taste challenge, I guess. I was not displeased that I tried it. If somebody asked me, is it worth trying? I'd say yes, it's worth trying. But don't expect an abundance or a plethora of flavors and aromas, because it's not going to have that. It's going to be very muted. But for the same price, you can buy this. And it's way less of an item. So just got a shot. Any last comments? Oh, Dr. Dave dropped off. I knew he was having an echo issue. Any last comments?
I would just say that, you know, this is an average whiskey, and there's a lot of other average whiskeys out there. You know, it is what it is. It is what it is.
So the fact that it's kind of ho-hum is not that striking. In other words, it's not that unusual to have a ho-hum whiskey, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like it's dependable, it's predictable. You know, it's something you could serve someone or you could sip away on yourself. It's not revolting. Do I think there are better products in terms of flavor? Absolutely. And some of them might even be cheaper, but you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's a whiskey that people probably buy for mixing drinks and for people that maybe are on a budget or aren't too picky.
Yeah, and I guess you can't really rip. I guess you can't go too hard on a product that presents what it was designed to present, right?
Yeah, it's not purporting to be some high-end whiskey from Scotland that's been sitting in a cellar aging for 50 years.
Right. I mean, if the company's telling you, hey, try our whiskey, it's kind of dull, but it's cheap. Well, okay, they just told you it's kind of dull and cheap, so why would you fuss about it? If you want something exotic, go pay an exotic price. Or if you want something just a little better, you can buy Jack Daniels. It's $24 a bottle, probably a lot more in Canada. And you can drink that and it'll present a lot more flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
William or Johnny, any last comments? I mean, I'm glad I tried it. That's all I can say. I'm not overwhelmed by it. I mean, it exists. We examined it. You know, hey, all right, good. Last call for comments. Okay, so no final comments. John, we're glad you joined us.
See you guys.
You're welcome to join us anytime. And so next week, let's see, what is next week? I'm starting to lose track.
Second chance beers.
So, right, I have mine in the fridge. What am I talking about? A beer that you tried the first time and you didn't really like. Look, I got a cat. I wish Dr. Dave was still here. I got a cat calendar. A beer that you tried the first time, you didn't really like it. But as you started drinking on it some more, you started to like it.
Now,
and then after that, I don't know what we're going to look at. I'm like a lot of rock bands. I run out of ideas. But I'm not going to go on a tour just playing old hits. I'm not doing a casino circuit, so we got to get some new ideas. Or just let it go. I'm not going to be like Casey in the Sunshine and not get embarrassed to myself. All right. But William said he's got some interesting ideas. So do y'all think you'd like to join us for Second Chance Beers?
I'm in. I'm in.
I would.
How about you, William? Okay, John.
I was going to say I'd love to do the Second Chance Beers. I'm more of a beer drinker anyway. I actually, one of the main reasons I got into bourbon was I started watching your videos and gave bourbon a chance because I used to drink it, mix it when I was younger and didn't really appreciate it. And I've gotten back into it, drinking it neat. But yeah, beer has always been my number one go-to. So sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the main thing I do. People said you're turning your back on beer. I said, no, I'm not. There's no sin in looking at other things, right?
That's right.
Like, I'm not in beer prison. I don't have to only look at beer. But that is the thing. That is the main thing. Bill, you think you'd like to join us for Second Chance Beer?
Got one in mind, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wait, years. I don't think William's here in this. Do y'all think so?
I'm hearing the audio speeded up. I'm having trouble.
Yeah.
Making out the conversation.
It's like you're playing a 33 1/3 RPM on 45, huh?
That's really weird. Well, I should have stuck to Internet Explorer, but it kept knocking me off.
But just
Or else you're all jacked up on chicory and caffeine. I don't know.
it is. It's really speeded. It's like. But
no, I'm yeah. I'll just delete the video.
But on the topics, this is summertime, and baseball and beer are a very good combination. I was thinking something maybe along the lines of a Hall of Fame for legacy beers. You could nominate maybe 4 and bring one beer and explain, make your case why it should be included in the inaugural year of the Legacy Hall of Fame for beers. So, and that would be most everybody could find something to bring that they, it wouldn't be a problem of finding a beer. Plus, it opens up a lot of conversation. So that might be something you want to, summertime.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that idea. All right, we're going to shut the